If you think you already understand how air travel works, I need you to stop and pay close attention. Beginning January 2026, the regulations that determine whether you can board an aircraft, pass through security, or even complete a journey you scheduled months ago are shifting quietly but forcefully, and many senior travelers above 60 are the most vulnerable. Welcome to U.S. Policy Brief, your reliable source for the newest information on U.S. immigration, visas, green cards, and citizenship. I am your host, Fernando. For months, there have been whispers circulating around. You might have caught wind about passport and ID enforcement becoming stricter, new digital travel permissions, airline policy modifications, and uncertainty surrounding deadlines that continue shifting. Until now, much of this seemed voluntary or weakly enforced. That grace period is concluding. The government departments and airlines involved have now completed their schedules, and several of the most crucial rules begin taking effect in January 2026. Here is the truth many travelers are not ready for. If you show up at the airport early this year carrying the same documents, practices, and beliefs you depended on in 2024 or 2025, you might encounter unexpected charges, extended delays, or even complete rejection at the gate. In certain situations, travelers will be billed simply to move through security. In others, boarding passes will not be provided at all if a digital requirement was overlooked days before. These are not cautions anymore. These are system-level barriers embedded directly into airline and government databases. Today, I'm going to guide you through the most significant travel modifications taking effect in early 2026 with particular attention on seniors and experienced travelers who are most likely to be surprised. We'll discuss new ID enforcement inside U.S. airports, tighter international entry regulations, airline policy changes, and several concealed pitfalls that don't appear serious until they cost you a journey. This is not about alarm. It's about readiness. I've examined official government statements, airline policy revisions, and international travel rules to provide you a clear understanding of what is shifting and when. My objective is straightforward: to ensure you don't waste money, miss a flight, or get refused travel because of a regulation nobody properly explained to you. Let's begin with the most debated change occurring right here in U.S. airports. For years, travelers have been informed about the Real ID requirement, that tiny star on a driver's license that indicates federal compliance. The official deadline passed in 2025, but in practice, enforcement remained lenient. TSA officers frequently permitted travelers without a Real ID to proceed after a manual identity verification, typically with nothing beyond a warning. That tolerance is finishing, and it finishes definitively in early 2026. Starting February 1st, 2026, TSA will no longer consider non-compliant ID as a minor inconvenience. If you arrive at airport security without a Real ID, compliant license, or a valid U.S. passport, you will be assessed what the agency describes as a Confirm ID fee. The amount is $45. It must be paid immediately, and it is non-refundable. The logic is clear from the government's viewpoint. Manual identity confirmation requires extra time and resources, and that expense is now being transferred directly onto travelers. Here is where many seniors, particularly seasonal travelers, are most vulnerable. That $45 charge does not permanently resolve the issue. It only covers a restricted verification period of 10 days. Picture flying from New York to Florida in early February without a passport. You pay the charge, finish your trip, and remain for 2 weeks. When it's time to return home, that 10-day period has concluded. You pay another $45 just to pass through security again. A round trip can unexpectedly cost an additional $90 simply because of the ID you carried. Depending on this fee is not just costly, it is also time-consuming. Travelers paying it are directed into a separate procedure that can add 20 to 30 minutes at the checkpoint, sometimes longer during busy travel periods. The safest and easiest solution is not to risk this system at all. If you do not yet possess a Real ID, bring your U.S. passport or passport card when you fly domestically. A valid passport completely exempts you from the charge and prevents the delay entirely. This modification marks a clear statement from TSA. The era of leniency is finished. Going forward, your ability to travel smoothly depends less on explanations and more on having the proper document in hand. And this is only the first of several enforcement changes arriving in 2026. If your travel arrangements include Europe or the United Kingdom in 2026, the entry procedure you recall is shifting in significant ways. Many of these systems technically exist already, but enforcement is becoming rigid, automated, and unforgiving. Starting early next year, airlines will no longer depend on human judgment at the gate. Computer systems will determine whether you are permitted to board. For travelers heading to England, Scotland, or Wales, the United Kingdom's Electronic Travel Authorization, commonly known as the ETA, is no longer optional in reality. Although the system launched earlier, airlines were accommodating during the initial stage. That grace period concludes on February 25, 2026. From that date onward, if you do not have an approved ETA digitally connected to your passport before you reach the airport, the airline will not be able to provide a boarding pass. This applies even if the UK is only a connection on your route. No authorization means no boarding, regardless of how brief the stop may be. The ETA is not something you acquire at the airport. It must be finished in advance using the official UK ETA app on a smartphone, and approval can require time. There is a small charge involved, and missing this step has already caused travelers to be rejected despite having valid passports and tickets. The crucial mistake many people make is assuming enforcement will be accommodating. In 2026, it will not be. Traveling within continental Europe is also changing. The European Union's entry-exit system is progressing toward full implementation by April 2026. Traditional passport stamps are being eliminated and replaced with biometric processing. Upon arrival, travelers will be guided to kiosks where facial scans and fingerprints are gathered. For older travelers, these kiosks can be difficult. The systems are exact, and the process must be completed accurately. There is no longer room for minor overstay mistakes. The system automatically monitors the duration of your stay, and even a single day beyond the limit can trigger future travel limitations. There has been confusion around the European travel authorization system that will follow later. You do not need that authorization in January 2026 despite what some websites state. It is expected to begin later in the year. When it does, seniors over the age of 70 will be exempt from the application charge, though the form will still be necessary. Any site charging older travelers a fee before official launch should be treated with suspicion. These changes signal a broader transformation in international travel. Entry decisions are no longer made at the counter. They are made in advance by databases and by automated systems that do not make exceptions. Airlines are also making major modifications in 2026. And one of the biggest transformations affects a carrier many travelers have depended on for decades. Beginning January 27, 2026, Southwest Airlines will officially conclude its open seating policy. For the first time in its history, passengers will be given assigned seats. This means the familiar practice of checking in exactly 24 hours early to obtain a better position will vanish. Instead, seat selection will occur at the time of booking, similar to other major airlines. While this may seem more convenient, there is an important compromise. Southwest is introducing new premium seating areas. Front row seats and exit rows with extra leg room will come at an added expense. For older travelers who prefer sitting near the front to minimize walking or exit the plane more easily, this modification may mean paying extra for comfort that was once complimentary. Another significant change affects passengers who require additional seating space. Under the new assigned seating system, the long-standing policy that permitted a refund for an extra seat is being modified. Starting in 2026, refunds for that additional seat are no longer assured. If a flight is completely full and 2 seats are occupied, the second seat may not be refunded. This transfers the financial risk to the traveler, making advanced planning critical. There is also an earlier rule taking effect on January 11, 2026 that impacts anyone traveling with a mobility scooter or powered device. To comply with updated fire safety regulations, Southwest is enforcing strict restrictions on lithium-ion batteries. Any battery exceeding 300 Wh will not be permitted on board. Many heavy-duty or long-range mobility devices surpass this limit. Travelers should verify battery specifications now, and if needed, contact manufacturers about travel-approved alternatives well before reaching the airport. These airline changes reflect a broader pattern across the industry. Simplicity is being replaced with structured pricing, stricter regulations, and less flexibility at the gate. For travelers who plan ahead, the system can still function smoothly. For those depending on old habits, 2026 could bring expensive surprises. Not every change arriving in 2026 makes travel more difficult. In fact, some of the most significant updates finally provide travelers stronger protections, especially when things go wrong. Under rules that become fully enforceable in 2026, airlines must now provide automatic cash refunds when flights are significantly delayed or modified and a passenger decides not to travel. For domestic flights, a delay of 3 hours or more qualifies. For international flights, that threshold is 6 hours. When that limit is reached, you no longer have to accept vouchers or credits. You can request a refund, and the airline is obligated to return the money to your original payment method within 7 days. There is also an important provision for travelers with disabilities or mobility needs. If an airline substitutes aircraft and the new plane no longer meets your accessibility requirements, such as lacking an accessible restroom, that change alone can qualify you for a refund, even if the flight is technically punctual. This rule restores dignity and choice to travelers who were previously compelled to accept unsuitable conditions. Passport processing is also evolving. In 2026, the State Department plans to expand its online passport renewal system. Eligible travelers will be able to renew using a digital photo, online forms, and electronic payment without visiting a post office. This option applies only to standard renewals. First-time applicants or passports expired for extended periods will still require in-person processing. It is also essential to remember the 6-month validity rule. Many countries will refuse entry if your passport expires within 6 months of your travel date, regardless of your return ticket. If this breakdown helped you understand what's approaching and how to prepare, make sure you subscribe to US Policy Brief to stay connected for future updates. Finally, there are smaller operational changes that are easy to miss but can cause real difficulty. Security screening technology is improving, and certain packing techniques that once passed through now trigger extra examination. Items like overstuffed neck pillows are being pulled aside more frequently, slowing travelers down and creating unnecessary anxiety. Medical items such as cooling packs for medication are still permitted, but travelers must clearly announce them and advocate for themselves at the checkpoint. Travel in 2026 is not about fortune or persuasion. It is about preparation and compliance. Verify your identification, review your airline policies, confirm battery limits, and understand your refund rights before you depart home. The rules are stricter, but they are also clearer. With the correct information, you can continue to travel confidently without being refused at the gate.